My golden child brother couldn't handle my success, so he vandalized my car. Now everyone knows what he did. I'm a 30-year-old woman, and I've got a younger brother named Jackson. He's 26, and the truth is, we've never gotten along. Honestly, I don't think we ever will. Maybe that's part of the reason he's always tried to stir up drama in my life. But this time, things didn't go the way he planned. He ended up shooting himself in the foot. I'd say part of that is thanks to my parents, who always treated him differently. When I was little, life was actually pretty sweet. Being the only child back then, I had all my parents' attention. They doted on me constantly. But the moment Jackson was born, it felt like I got shoved to the sidelines. Nothing I did could bring them back to me, though I tried everything I could think of. I worked hard, joined sports, stayed at the top of my class, performed in school plays, sang, danced, you name it. I gave it my all, hoping they'd be proud of me or even just notice. But no matter what I did, it was like I didn't exist anymore. Everything suddenly revolved around Jackson. What made it harder to swallow was that Jackson didn't seem particularly gifted in any way. If he'd been some kind of prodigy, I might have understood why my parents were so wrapped up in him. But he was just this spoiled, loudmouthed kid who got used to being the center of attention. And anytime someone else got the spotlight, especially me, he just couldn't handle it. Every single time I brought home some good news, he'd do something, anything, to steal the show. And our parents? They let him. It was like they were completely blind to his behavior. One moment that really stuck with me was my 18th birthday. My parents threw me a party, and for a little while, it actually felt special. But right in the middle of it, we got a call from the police. Turns out, Jackson had gotten caught drinking with some friends. Thing is, all the other kids had taken off when the cops showed up, but Jackson didn't. He stayed put, like he wanted to get caught. And in my gut, I knew exactly why. He wanted to pull the attention back onto himself. My parents, of course, were frantic with worry and ran off to deal with it. And guess what? He didn't even face any real consequences. The cops let him go with just a warning. My dad being on the force probably had something to do with that. My parents brought him home, gave him a little lecture, but didn't ground him or anything. No real punishment. So, there went my birthday, hijacked by Jackson. And unfortunately, it wasn't the last time he did something like that. When I was 21 and landed my very first job, I was so proud. I couldn't wait to share the news. But right as I walked through the door to tell my parents, Jackson showed up with his girlfriend and announced that they were engaged. Suddenly, all the focus shifted to him again. Instead of celebrating my new job, we were planning an engagement dinner. That moment was the final straw for me. I blew up. I got into a huge argument with both my brother and my parents. And instead of listening or trying to understand where I was coming from, they brushed me off. They said I was being too sensitive, dramatic even. That was the day I decided I was done. I cut them off. My parents did try reaching out a few times after that, but it's been 9 years, and I still haven't said a word to them. Deep down, I know they've always loved Jackson more than they ever loved me. As for Jackson, he never once tried to make amends. And, funny enough, he ended up calling off the engagement just a few weeks after I walked away from all of them. So it really was just a stunt to steal the spotlight. Honestly, I'm glad he's never tried to reconnect. I want nothing to do with him. He's a cruel, selfish person, and I'm better off without that kind of chaos in my life. We haven't spoken in nearly a decade, but I'm sure he's kept tabs on me somehow. We've run into each other at a few family gatherings, so I'm pretty sure he, and everyone else, knows that I'm doing alright. I drive a nice car, dress well, and live comfortably. Since I don't have a family of my own and don't plan on starting one anytime soon, I just spend my money on myself. I've been able to afford that lifestyle because I run my own business now. It's been a wild ride, but incredibly fulfilling, exactly what I always dreamed of. A couple of years ago, when the business really started to take off, I decided it was time for a fresh start. I moved out of the tiny apartment I'd lived in since my first job and bought a new house. I told my relatives explicitly not to share my address with my immediate family, especially not with Jackson. But somehow, he managed to find out. 6 days ago, he showed up uninvited and clearly out for trouble. That evening, I had just gotten home from work and was getting ready to head to a party. I hadn't pulled my car into the garage yet, it was still parked out in the driveway. When I stepped outside to leave, I froze. My car had been spray-painted, bright red paint, harsh and jarring. The sides were covered in crude language and cuss words, which was bad enough. But what really got to me was what he'd written on the windshield: "You don't deserve any of this." For a few minutes, I just stood there, stunned. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I reached for my phone, thinking about calling the police, but then it hit me. If Jackson was behind this, calling the cops wouldn't matter. My dad would find out and shut the whole thing down, just like before. He'd probably get off with nothing more than a scolding. I took a breath, went inside, and checked the security footage. Sure enough, even though the guy had a hoodie on, I recognized him right away. Jackson hadn't been careful, he'd slipped up just enough that I caught a glimpse of his face on camera. There was no doubt in my mind it was him. And just like that, I knew there was no point in reporting it. He'd get away with it again. And I say that not just because of what happened when I was 18, but because of everything I've heard over the years. A few relatives have let it slip that Jackson's been leaning on our dad's connections for years now, dodging consequences left and right. As for why he did it, I've got a pretty solid guess. Word is, he tried starting a business a while back, but it flopped hard. He ended up buried in debt and had to run to our parents for help just to get out of it. None of the jobs he's had since have worked out either. After my parents refused to let Jackson move back in with them, he just kind of gave up on life. With nowhere else to turn, he spiraled, started drinking heavily, dabbling in drugs. And the worst part? My dad knows all about it. He's fully aware of Jackson's shady behavior, but instead of holding him accountable, he's always bailing him out. Anytime Jackson lands himself in a mess, my dad jumps in to clean it up, no questions asked. Lately, it seems like Jackson's really been struggling to come to terms with how well I'm doing. Things hit a nerve a few days ago when I made the cover of a local magazine. My face was all over it, and folks in the family were buzzing about it. I guess that kind of attention made him feel even more small and bitter. He hasn't changed a bit since we were kids. Still stuck in that mindset where everything has to be about him. And now that he doesn't have anything going for himself, not even a steady job, his weekend partying isn't the badge of honor it used to be. Maybe that's why he snapped and decided to vandalize my car, just his way of lashing out and telling me I didn't deserve my success. But here's the thing, and I know it might sound harsh, but in my eyes, he's reaping what he sowed. He was never the type to work hard or commit to anything. He always expected things to magically work out for him. And thanks to my parents constantly smoothing things over and giving him whatever he wanted, he never had to face any consequences. So yeah, it's no surprise he turned out this way. When I saw the footage from my security camera and realized it was him who trashed my car, I knew calling the police would be useless. My dad would step in again and sweep everything under the rug, like he always does. But I wasn't about to let Jackson get away with this. Not after 9 years of complete silence, and he still had the nerve to come mess with me. So I sat down and thought about it. And then it hit me, if I couldn't go through the system, I'd take it straight to the people. I grabbed clear photos of the vandalism, especially the message on the windshield, and posted them on social media. Along with that, I uploaded the video from my security camera and called him out by name. I didn't mince words, I said I was certain it was my brother who did it. I knew I couldn't rely on the legal system, not with my dad's connections. He's been a cop all his life, and he'd move heaven and earth to keep Jackson from getting into trouble. But the internet? That was a whole different playing field. Within just a couple hours, the comments started rolling in. And before posting, I made sure to unblock every single family member so they could all see it. I wanted no doubts about what happened. It didn't take long, Jackson texted me, demanding I take the post down. I told him flat out that I wasn't going to. And what could he do, really? If he wanted to get legal about it, he'd have to prove that it wasn't him in the video. Which would mean taking the matter to court. And let's be honest, it was him. His face was on camera. So if he pushed it, he'd be digging his own grave. I had nothing to lose in this. Sure, I'd have to repaint my car, but I make enough now that covering the cost wasn't a problem. He, on the other hand, stood to lose a lot. If the court confirmed it was him, not only would he be in legal trouble, but so would anyone who helped cover it up, my father included. And knowing Jackson, I don't think he saw that coming. He probably thought I'd go to the cops, then he'd get Daddy to swoop in and fix everything like always. But this time? He picked the wrong fight. After I replied to him, Jackson went completely silent for a couple days. Didn't even try to argue. Meanwhile, the post stayed up, and it kept spreading. Friends, family, even old family friends were seeing it and chiming in. Then, 2 days ago, he reached out again. He said he was willing to pay for the damage, but begged me to take the post down. I told him straight it was never about the money. I wanted him to take responsibility for what he'd done. Publicly. That meant a public apology. Only then would I even consider removing the post. That's when he started begging. Said he was fine apologizing to me in private, or however else I wanted, just not online. He didn't want to admit publicly that he'd done something so low. Claimed he had clients who would drop him if they saw that post. I don't even know what clients he's talking about, since far as I know, he's not running any kind of business. But honestly, I didn't care either way. So far, he'd just been brushing everyone off, pretending he had nothing to do with it. But going public meant owning it, and that would make him look bad. Still, I didn't budge. I told him those were my terms, take it or leave it. And if he chose to ignore them, the post would stay up. He sent a couple more messages, trying to reason with me, but I didn't even bother replying. Then my dad called. He said my post wasn't just hurting Jackson, it was dragging his reputation through the mud, too. He reminded me how he'd dedicated his whole life to his career, and that something like this could damage everything he'd built. He asked me to take the post down, politely at first. But I told him no. I said if he hadn't gone out of his way to protect Jackson all these years, then maybe I wouldn't have had anything bad to say about him in that post to begin with. Now his image was on the line, and instead of asking Jackson to own up and apologize, my parents started yelling at me. They said I was being selfish. That success had gone to my head, and now I thought I could do whatever I wanted without facing consequences. I was about to hang up right then, but then my mom started crying. She told me she never thought I'd behave like this. She even admitted that they hadn't treated Jackson and me equally growing up. But she said they'd tried reaching out to me over the years and that I'd always ignored them. According to her, it wasn't fair for me to act like they were the bad guys when, in her eyes, they'd been trying to make things right for a long time. What I didn't know until recently was that, apparently, after I made that post, Jackson finally told our parents the truth, that he had vandalized my car. And according to them, they cut ties with him shortly after. The only reason they were even speaking to him now was to convince him to help get me to take the post down. Beyond that, they claimed there was no contact. They told me they'd changed, that they were different people now. But by refusing to take the post down, they said I was dragging my dad's reputation through the mud without giving him a real chance to prove he'd changed. And I'll admit, it's left me feeling conflicted. I still don't want to remove that post, not after everything, but now I don't quite know how to handle this new version of the story they're presenting. So I guess I'm just wondering, am I the jerk for keeping a Facebook post up that exposes my brother, even though it's damaging my dad's reputation too? Update 1. Before I get into the latest, I should mention a few things. First, my dad recently retired from the police force. He just turned 55 a couple months ago and decided to take early retirement because of some heart issues he's been having. I only found out about it through other relatives. Even though he's not working anymore, he still has ties in the department, old friends and colleagues. And I know if he wanted to, he could have helped Jackson skate by once again. So no, I don't regret posting that video online instead of going to the cops. Honestly, putting it out there on Facebook probably hurt Jackson's reputation more than any police report would have. And that's exactly what I wanted. As for the kind of drugs Jackson was using, I'm not entirely sure. I just know that whatever he was into wasn't legal. It wasn't just about the substances either, he's involved in other shady stuff too. He hasn't held a proper job since his business failed a few years ago, yet somehow he still manages to pay rent and live on his own. I'm almost certain my parents were helping him financially at one point, but even if they've stopped, there's no way he's covering all his expenses legitimately. His Instagram is basically a highlight reel of parties, clubs, and luxury, none of which adds up for someone with no job. I might not know exactly what he's doing, but I know it's not above board. And if my dad has been helping him hide all of that, then he's not the honorable man he pretended to be all these years. That's why I have zero interest in protecting his reputation now. He made his bed. Sure, my parents pointed out that they've tried reaching out over the years, and yeah, they did. But I ignored them for a reason. Because deep down, I've always known that Jackson would always be their priority. And even now, that hasn't changed. They say they cut ties, but they were still talking to him just to get me to take down the post. So really, what's the difference? At first, I'll admit, I was overwhelmed. All these emotions came rushing back, and I wasn't sure what to do. But then I started reading the comments on that post, the support I received, the people agreeing with me, and I realized I wasn't wrong. I wasn't the villain here. My family brought this on themselves, and if they're getting hate now, it's because of their own actions. So here we are. It's been 9 days, and the post is still up. I already had my car repainted. I didn't see the point in waiting around for Jackson or my parents to cough up the money. And like I've said before, this was never about the money. I'd been crystal clear about that. But even now, Jackson won't let up. He keeps texting me over and over, saying he's sorry and that he'll pay for everything, any amount I ask. Which, honestly, just makes me more suspicious. If my parents truly cut him off, then where is this money coming from? Because I highly doubt he's suddenly landed a job. It's just more proof that he's still involved in something shady. Still, I ignore every text. I told him what I want, a public apology. That's it. Until I get it, the post stays up. And honestly, even if I do eventually take it down, the damage is already done. Everyone saw it. The whole family has cut ties with Jackson and my parents, nobody wants to deal with them anymore. Old schoolmates, people we grew up with, have reached out to me saying they aren't surprised. Jackson was always that bratty kid who never got punished, and it finally caught up to him. He's not getting away with it this time. Since that last heated phone call, I haven't heard a word from my parents. No idea what they've been doing. Truthfully, I just don't understand why it's so hard for them to admit they messed up. I'm not asking for much, a sincere apology. That's it. But to them, it's like I'm demanding the impossible. It's sad, yeah. But I can't say I'm shocked. They've always been this way. I'm just grateful I walked away from them 9 years ago. They never deserved to be in my life, and they still don't. Update 2. This morning, my parents showed up at my place. But it wasn't just the two of them, they brought backup. Along with them came their lawyer, who also happens to be my mom's older brother, my uncle. He's a pretty sharp attorney, well respected, and I honestly have no idea why he agreed to come along, unless it was to intimidate me somehow. It was the weekend, and I was just having a slow morning at home when I heard the doorbell. I looked out and saw the three of them standing outside my house. I decided to let them in. Honestly, I was more curious than anything about what they had to say. As soon as they stepped inside, my parents went straight to the point. They were there because of the post. They said if I didn't take it down, they'd be forced to sue me for defamation. Now, I wish I could say I was shocked or even slightly intimidated. But I wasn't. If anything, I found it kind of laughable that they thought that threat would scare me. To show me they weren't bluffing, my uncle, who also happens to be my mom's older brother and a seasoned attorney, pulled out the paperwork for the lawsuit. He'd already prepared everything. Still didn't scare me. I looked them dead in the eye and told them they were free to do whatever they wanted. I couldn't understand why they felt the need to show up at my house and deliver some kind of warning first. If they were serious about suing me, they could have just done it. After that, I let them know I'd made up my mind, too. I wasn't backing down. That post would stay up until Jackson gave me the one thing I'd asked for from the very beginning, a public apology. Not a private I'm sorry, not hush-hush damage control, a public admission of what he'd done. But they didn't leave. They just sat there. My dad leaned in and started pressing the issue again, trying to explain that they were giving me a chance to avoid a legal mess if I just deleted the stupid post, as he put it. He told me to stop treating it like a joke and take it seriously. I stayed quiet. That's when he slammed his fist down hard on my coffee table. And that's where I drew the line. That table is expensive, and I wasn't about to let him destroy something else after his son had already vandalized my car. I'd paid to fix that out of my own pocket. I wasn't letting another piece of my life be damaged because these two couldn't control themselves. I told him to get out. Point blank. I said he clearly wasn't capable of a civil conversation and that neither was his son, and I had no interest in engaging with either of them any further. My uncle, to his credit, didn't say much. He quietly pulled my dad back, trying to de-escalate things. My mom, on the other hand, tried to step in and salvage the situation. She started begging, saying we could all move past this if I'd just take the post down. I didn't even have to forgive them, she said, just delete it and let it go. But I'd had enough. I told them I wasn't negotiating. And honestly, I didn't even believe they had the guts to go through with the lawsuit. Because here's the thing about defamation, you have to prove the person lied. And I didn't lie. Everyone knows I didn't lie. If anything, they'd be the ones on trial, because the truth would come out, loud and clear. And then my dad lost it. He started yelling, cursing at me, and I couldn't help but yell back. It turned into a full-blown screaming match. He got so worked up, he started punching the wall and actually managed to put a hole in it. My uncle tried to stop him, but it was no use. My dad might be retired, but he's still built like a cop, and watching him punch through my wall was honestly terrifying. But what happened next? That was the most disturbing part. He pulled out a thick wad of cash, tossed it onto my coffee table like I was some problem he could just pay off, and told me to call him if I needed more. Then he turned and walked out. I was disgusted. Right then and there, I knew this had gone way beyond a family dispute. My father and Jackson? They weren't just toxic, they were dangerous. And I didn't want either of them anywhere near me ever again. So I contacted my lawyer. He already knew about the vandalism from the post, but I walked him through everything else, the visit, the threats, the hole in my wall, all of it. We're now in the process of getting a restraining order against my family. And to be honest, I absolutely qualify. Especially after what happened in my own home. And yes, I'm seriously pursuing legal action now. What started as me just defending myself online has turned into something much bigger. People deserve to know the truth about the kind of people I've been dealing with. I won't stay quiet just to protect someone else's image. Update 3. So, like I said, I went ahead and filed for both the restraining order and the lawsuit. We're officially in the early stages of legal proceedings now. And in the meantime, I've learned some things about Jackson that only confirm everything I suspected. A few old classmates reached out to let me know that Jackson isn't just partying his life away, he's actually dealing drugs. Not weed or anything minor either, he's deep into hard drugs and has apparently built up a little elite clientele. Spoiled trust fund brats, upper tier corporate types, you get the picture. Honestly, I'm shocked he managed to pull it off. But I guess in his own twisted way, he finally found a hustle that worked. Still, I understand now why he was so jealous of me. I've got a thriving business and a real future, he's peddling poison and living off whatever shady deals he can make. That's not exactly something you brag about at family reunions. It's going to be hard to prove, I know that. Right now, it's just rumors. But I believe in the justice system, and I think that with the right investigation, everything will eventually come to light. At least now I understand how he was affording his flashy lifestyle despite not having a job. It all adds up. And about my parents? I don't believe for a second that they truly cut him off. At our last court hearing, they looked way too cozy to have been estranged. There's no way they'd patch things up that quickly if my dad had actually kicked him out of his life like he claimed. I was right to trust my gut and not give them the benefit of the doubt. They've always backed Jackson, no matter what. Right now, I'm focused on moving forward. I have my whole family backing me, and even some friends who are ready to testify if it comes to that. My neighbors, who heard the wall getting punched that day, are also willing to speak up. So at the very least, the restraining order should be a done deal, and that alone gives me a sense of peace. As for everything else, I'll take it one step at a time. What matters most is that I'm finally getting the closure I didn't even realize I needed. For years, I carried around this anger, this resentment, and now I'm finally letting it out and confronting it head-on. I don't know if this is the healthiest way to process it all, but I am processing it, and I'm proud of that. Whatever happens next, I'm ready for it.